This video is going to be a lot about electrical upgrades. We're going to talk about auxiliary lighting, a very easy auxiliary switch upgrade, and a digital rear view mirror. If you've been following the channel for some time, then you're likely familiar with my 2020 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon build I call the Tent Jeep. Maybe the most dramatic modification done to the Jeep has been the swap from the standard bed to the MITS alloy tray bed and canopy. When the bed was getting installed at actual vehicle outfitters, one of the things that we noticed was that the Ignite rear taillight assemblies came with a dedicated amber for the turn signals. On the Gladiator platform, however, the turn signals were actually combined with the taillights. Knowing this, AVO isolated the yellow amber wire so I could easily later tap into that with a dedicated switch. Now, my Gladiator did not come with a factory switch panel, so I needed some sort of solution that would allow me to not only power these, but some other accessories I planned on adding on. What I ended up with was a JL400 from a company called Voswitch. It comes with 4 switches and is designed to click right into your factory grab handle. Each circuit that comes with the weatherproof module has a 30 amp rating, and it bolts to the top of the fender using a provided bolt and one of the factory pieces of hardware. It mounts right over the battery, which even with my aftermarket AutoZone battery that's a little bit larger than stock, I didn't have an issue. Once you have it mounted, you're going to route one cable into the cab. I did this right at the back side of the firewall. Didn't really have a big issue there. I did loom it to kind of clean it up a bit. To access your firewall, Jeep made it super simple. There's a twist out cover that you can pop out and then drill a large hole so you can pass the cables through. I made mine a bit larger than it needed to be. This was mostly because I knew I'd probably add more accessories later and I didn't want this to be a problem. To seal it up, I simply cut a small slit into a piece of Velcro that had an adhesive back on it, and it's working perfectly fine. To remove the grab handle, you will unclip the top and bottom covers by hand, pop off the speaker cover, then unbolt it from the A-pillar, removing 2 10mm bolts holding it in place. From here, you will need to remove the top cover, then drill out a hole large enough so you can pass the harness wire through it. Once this part is done, you'll attach the 2 wire leads together and reinstall the grab handle. At this point, you can attach the VL400 power cables to the battery and connect your accessories. Before I did so, I had one other accessory to install. I've been wanting to put a set of lights on the front of the Jeep for a while, and purchasing the switch panel finally gave me enough of an excuse to get a set. These are 7-inch round DayMaker long-range LED lights from GG Lighting. They put out 11,500 lumens each and cost around $180 per light. To mount them, I used 2 existing holes in my Rugged Ridge front bumper. These holes were intended for a small bull bar, but they worked fine for these as the placement didn't block the light enough to make a difference, and I could still easily place a recovery rope on the hook if necessary. Though the lights did come with a 2-to-1 harness, I just needed the power and ground leads to attach to the module. I wired these to switch number 1, while the amber lights for the turn signals were wired to switch number 2. Now, in terms of brightness, the rear ambers are fairly strong considering their size, but they are not a replacement for a dedicated spot or flood light. They provide just enough light to make it easier to see what's in my bed drawer or attach things to the receiver. I'm not sure how helpful they will really be in a dusty situation, but I'm glad I at least have the option. The front lights, however, are extremely bright. As I've mentioned in previous videos about lighting, amber or higher Kelvin temperature lighting is said to be easier on your eyes. It also tends to show more details in the dirt. This is why I primarily keep the yellow covers on. The green is similar to the yellow in that it provides more detail and helps see a bit better in the dust, but it's a little bit of an odd color, so I don't really use it that much. The clear is extremely bright, but it doesn't present as much detail as the other colors. It's nice to have the options, but for me, I prefer the yellow. So I will definitely say I'm happy with this overall setup. I think the fit and finish is really nice. It's pretty seamless in there. It isn't one more thing I've got, you know, staring at me in the face that's like kind of blocking my view. Very easy to use and access. I have it on the red light settings. You have a few light settings for this thing. I just liked how the red looked. Typically, I just keep it off. I'm not driving down the road, you know, using the big lights on this thing. That'd be kind of silly. So it's, I don't know, I like it. I think for 200 bucks, it's a pretty easy solution. And, you know, I know they make another one here that you can have some more switches on, but for my needs, 4 was all I really needed. Okay, so I know that I have mentioned a digital rear view camera, and this is it. So let's talk a little bit about it. Before I do so, let me go ahead and crank up the Jeep so you can turn on. You guys can see kind of what it's all about. Now, this comes from a company called Wolfbox. It was recommended actually by a handful of people in the comments. I looked it up, and it's worked out really nice. Now, as you see it, as soon as I crank up, this thing starts recording, and that's pretty handy. I'll leave it on that feature. The way this works is you have a 4K front camera and you've got a 1080 rear camera, and those are the settings that I keep it on, and you can see forward, back, both, or like I typically run it just like this, which it does cut off a little bit. You can see my wife's Subaru covered in pollen right behind us. It shows you the date, timestamp. It has a GPS module that comes with it. And so whenever you pull the clips off, you'll actually have a GPS stamp on the video clip. This is not going to replace a GoPro, so don't think of it like that. But it is very handy for me having this 270-degree rear camera. I can really see a lot. Now, a couple things that I learned about this thing that I like and don't like. Number one, this is the 12-inch version. If I'd known it was going to be this wide and contact the visor, I would have got the 10-inch version. I think that would have been a little better. Something else, it is pretty bright. Now, you can adjust the brightness just by tapping up here, and I have it all the way as low as it can go, and even at night, it's still pretty bright. Another thing about nighttime, you get a lot of wash from the lights from behind you with cars, so that it doesn't make it not usable, but it's definitely not as effective. I had to mount my camera pretty low on the bed because I wanted to be able to take off the canopy, and that kind of hurt me a little bit with that placement. So the mirror is held on with a couple bands in the back, and once you get it in place, you can go ahead and route your wires. Now, these are just push-in clips. So basically I unbolted the 2 bolts for the grab handle here. You just pull it off, and really not that big of a deal. Use the trim tool to take this panel off. Don't forget you gotta take your speaker cover off first. Got this loose, routed the wires through there. The GPS wire is going to stay on the dash. I'll put the module probably somewhere along in here, and I can hide this wire pretty easily. These 2 wires here, one's for the backup camera, the other's the power lead. Went ahead and routed those down here, and then right now I've got a 30-foot cord sitting in the floor panel. So this is my least favorite part of this setup. Now, I purchased a adapter that was allegedly going to allow me to tap into this power feed on the back side, and so I modified the wire to the Wolfbox camera, and it just kept pulling too much power and wouldn't work. So I ended up having to go back to a plug-in style for it to work. I don't really use this cigarette lighter plug that much, so this really wasn't that big of a deal to do. I think I'd like to do something a little bit better where it's key on power. I don't want to run it to my switch panel up here, because I have this set up where I can turn it on or off anytime I want. You can actually wire this to where it's ignition power on. I did not want that. So I need to come up with a little bit better solution, because I don't know, I just don't like how that looks. It doesn't affect anything in how it works, but there's got to be a better way. Now, the last thing that's worth mentioning, I know when I did my Fox video, I kind of talked about potentially swapping out springs. I went ahead and did that, so I now have a set of JKS 4.5-inch springs. This gave me about 3/4 of an inch of a lift over the 3.5-inch springs that I had, so did exactly what I needed it to do. Truck's a little bit more level now, which is kind of what I was looking for, and now the front shocks are sitting more into the bypass zones. So that's been great. I love how this thing rides off-road with these 40-inch trail grapplers. It's just so smooth. Real happy with it. I got a couple trips planned for this thing. Probably as it gets warmer. I've really been wanting to see what this thing looks like without the canopy on the back. So that's probably going to be maybe the next thing that I do. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments, and I can't wait to get this thing out on the trail and get out of pollen season. So until next time, you guys take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the Driving Line channel. Our goal is to excite, entertain, and educate you on all things automotive. So if you want to come be part of our journey, please hit that subscribe button, and we hope to see you on the next video. Take care.